talk a little bit about the field, but at the same time, prepare you for a potential test question, okay? So what we're talking about is independent contractor versus employee, and this is another one of those things, if you just wanted to go and Google it, you could. You can clearly find videos about this. But what we're going to talk about are the advantages of being an independent contractor versus the disadvantages. Same thing for the employee, and what you will find is they have opposite advantages and disadvantages. You could just learn it that way. The first part I want to do is talk to you about being in the industry. I don't want you guys to be naive getting into real estate. Now you probably, I don't know if you've heard me say it or not, but I've said this to a lot of classes. I think that real estate is probably the best entrepreneurial business to be in. And the reason I say that is, you can come into this business with a modest amount of money. Now notice I said a modest amount, I didn't say free, okay? With a modest amount of money, you have the potential for an unlimited amount of income. Now notice I didn't guarantee you an unlimited amount of income, and an unlimited amount of income could be zero, all right, depending on your efforts. But having said that, you can get into this business, you can set up shop, you pass tests like these, okay, and then you actually are in business. And what I mean by the best opportunity is, one day you might get excited about buying a McDonald's franchise. Go see what McDonald's franchises cost. Okay, $2 million before you flip the first burger, right? Do you know what it costs to be in this business? Has anybody told you realistically what it's going to cost you to be in this business the first year? You want to take a guess? First year? What it's going to cost you, whether you make any money or not. How much? $3,000 is not bad. $3,000 is not a bad guess. I would say maybe a little bit more than that, but right around $3,000 is not a bad guess. How much did it take you to buy this course? Don't say it out loud, but it was somewhere around $400. Okay, you're going to go take a state exam. That's going to cost you another few $100. Criminal background checks, $100 or so, right? Okay, it's all starting to add up right now, but it's still not a bad deal. Once you join a company, it's likely that they're going to have fees associated with being in the company. Now, these are not throwaway fees. They are things that have to be paid for. Obviously, overhead, computers, and things like that. But also, importantly, errors and omissions insurance. If you ever decide to go to work for a small firm, that's fine, if that's what you want to do, but you need to ask them, do they have good errors and omissions insurance, E&O insurance, okay? Because what they do as a company, they carry it, and then they cover you if you are underneath the company, all right? So office fees are, one of those things that's a little bit of a pain, but they do cover stuff, so keep your eyes on those. And then, if you're going to sell houses in this area, you're going to have to join the multiple listing service, okay? You have no choice. To join the multiple listing service in this area, you have to be a realtor. So you have to pay realtor fees. Realtor fees are probably going to run you around $500 or so, maybe $550 bucks for the year, and that's going to be an annual thing. Every year you have to pay your realtor dues, okay? Our MLS locally costs $50 per month, so there's another $600 for you per year. So you're talking about between those two around $1,200 bucks, right? You're going to have business cards, you're going to have expense on your car and stuff like that. Lock boxes may or may not cost you depending on what your company policy is. But when you add it all up, you're starting to get close to around $3,000. And if anybody tells you otherwise, obviously they're misleading you to an extent, okay? Be prepared to come out of that pocket, that amount. You're also going to be responsible for your own advertising. Now, the reason you're responsible for your own advertising is because you're an independent contractor. What I would encourage you to do, though, is I would encourage you to jump on anything that your company has for free or for near free. Most of your companies are going to have websites. You can get a cheap website set up very simply. You can go and spend as much on a website as you want to, but it's not always necessary to do that. The company probably has some free or near free expense or benefits that you can use to get your website up and running. Things like Craigslist, they're free. You can spend as much money as you want to. What I'm telling you is it's not absolutely necessary if you'll take advantage of things that are readily available for you, okay? What else was I going to say on cost? Obviously your car and stuff, you know what you use from that standpoint. You want it looking good, you want it clean. You don't have to go out and buy a Mercedes. A lot of agents do, okay, but you don't have to go and buy a Mercedes. A nice looking clean Hyundai will be fine if that's what you want to use. Yes, Councilman?
What's the commission due? What's the yearly due? Like,
Oh, to the commission is $45.
Okay.
Yeah, the commission fee is $45. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to a penny save, but it's nominal. I'm sorry, I didn't bring it up. But it is a very modest fee. And then the other thing, and this is where it really gets you. When I worked for a company, they wrote me a check every couple of weeks. But in real estate, you're only going to get a check every couple of weeks if you sell a house every couple of weeks, okay? So now, let's segue in to the independent contractor versus employee. I would recommend that you start a list that says independent contractor advantages, and there'll be like 2 or 3 things, and then the same thing for employee, and then disadvantages of an independent contractor versus an employee, okay? So, do you want to start with the advantages of an independent contractor?
Yes, please.
All right, you know what the #1 advantage that I hear in these classes, why are you getting into real estate? What does everybody say? Schedule, flexibility. Yep, be your own boss, okay? So flexibility of schedule, time, and to some extent, you are your own boss. Obviously, you'll have someone to answer to, but you are your own boss in this business, okay? So that's one advantage. Now, please understand, when you say flexibility of time, understand that this business, it does take a significant effort, and it takes more and more in the early stages. And after you've been in this business for 3 years, you'll have everything automated. You're dealing mostly with referral business, and so you'll find it's not as hard as it was that first year. But be prepared to do some things that are going to be time-consuming, gut-wrenching. You know, you're going to have to go out and touch people so that you can get your leads, okay? Do you know another advantage of being an independent contractor? Not only do you have a freedom of time, no one can tell you where you have to be at a certain time, but what else?
Less fees will
Not really, but let's talk about money for just a second. Do you understand that there are some tax advantages for being an independent contractor? Hey, listen, there's some tax disadvantages as well, but let's talk about the tax advantages of being an independent contractor. You can deduct your expenses. Now, listen, make sure you talk to your accountant about how to set up your books. But if you have your books set up correctly, pretty much every mile that you drive in this business is going to have a potential tax deduction. These classes that you are taking, they have the ability for you to deduct those from your taxable income as well. So there are some tax advantages. I would highly recommend that you get to know a good accountant very early in your career once you start bringing in some income, okay? And you don't need to bring in as much income as you think you do. A lot of people think, well, golly, I have to make an exorbitant amount of income before that's an issue. Now, you start making more than about $35,000 to $50,000 worth of income, you need to talk to an accountant so they can set things up. If you make 50 grand in this business this year, you're going to make 100 next year, okay? So you need to be prepared to how to handle your taxes to be as efficient as possible, okay? Not cheap, but be as efficient as possible. And then, what did we say so far? We said flexibility, tax advantages, and an unlimited income. And I know that does sound weird today when you have zero income in this business, but the fact of the matter is, no one's going to put a cap on what you can make. When you were an employee, you knew that when you were working at Walmart, you were going to make $9 an hour. When you went to work at Macy's, you were going to make $15 an hour. When you went out and took a job in the field, your first job may have been $30,000, $35,000. You moved up from there, but you knew every week how much you were going to bring home, right? Real estate's not like that. To some extent, it's going to be based on your efforts. How much effort, how good are you, how talented are you in this business? That's what's going to be the basis of your income, right? So, you know, the first 3, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, but after that, it really is going to have a lot to do with your efforts, okay?
You just let school out.
They let out what?
3 hours.
Oh, crap. Now we have to do the math on that. Wake County is out 3 hours early, and it's just making that crap up. I don't even believe that. How many people in here, how many people have to go pick up kids today? Raise them high.
Oh, you do?
Maybe.
Okay, put them down.
There's not anything on WRL yet.
3 hours, that is a random.
No.
to do? Yeah, I mean, you have to leave, right? You don't have any other choice but to go, do you?
We could do school on Friday.
What's that?
So we could do school on Friday.
On Good Friday? But see, it's the same people. What time do we have right now?
10:35.
Oh, yeah.
What if I went to lunch today? If I go to lunch today and then go, who's the other parent? Who are the other parents in here? How bad is that going to mess you up if we go to lunch today?
That's fine.
That's 12:30. But see, they're not going to have after school either. If they cancel, they're not going to have after school. Okay, let me preach till the first break, and we'll figure it out at the first break, okay? Let me get a lot said in the first hour. The reason I'm in such a jam on this is we advertise this class as going with the Wake County School calendar, so I hate to ever go in deference to that. So I apologize for that. And maybe I'll stick around later and record something and just send to everybody, okay? I'll find something that we can get out of this, because I hate to miss this day, knowing that we miss Good Friday unless something changes. Okay, all right, let's talk real fast. Here it goes. We talked about the advantage of being an independent contractor. Let's talk about the disadvantage of being an independent contractor. Well, see, I got it recorded, so you can just slow it down. You can just slow it down.
I'm not going to get my mom together.
We'll talk about it at break, okay? All right, the disadvantages of being an independent contractor is actually just the opposite of being an independent, of the advantages, right? You're not going to get a paycheck every couple of weeks, right? Disadvantage of being an independent contractor, you're not getting a guaranteed paycheck every couple of weeks. The other disadvantage of being an independent contractor is you don't have benefits. No benefits. You're going to pay for your own or have a significant other that gets them, or you're going to have some other way of getting them, but you're not going to get them from the firm you're associated with if you're an independent contractor. Make sense? So let's go back over to the employee and say, well, I'm kind of rethinking this thing, Chris. Let me see, what are the advantages of being an employee? Look at the disadvantages of being an independent contractor. The advantages of being an employee are exactly the opposite there. As an employee, you're going to get paid something every couple of weeks. You have the opportunity for benefits, right? Okay? But what are the big disadvantages of being an employee?
Micromanaged, owned by a company.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be there. When they tell you to be there, when they tell you to be there, you got to be there, right? Okay? So, no flexibility, and you know what your income is going to be. There's a cap to some extent on your income unless you go in and get a raise or work there for years or whatever it is.
And they can fire you.
They can fire you, they can make you. That's a great point. You know who we get a ton of in this business when the economy starts shaking up just a little bit and people start shaking out of the IT business? We get a lot of people who come from IT at that point. Right now, we're not getting a lot of IT people full-time because it's so, everybody that's in IT is hired right now. Healthcare. We also get a lot of people from healthcare. I didn't ask if we have any healthcare workers in here, but apparently over time, it's just the stress of being in healthcare. Eventually, people say, you know what, I need something that I don't have to worry about literally life and death issues. Now, real estate is stressful, but rarely is it life and death, right? So we get people that are here and they're worried about it. What's going to become of me in my other job, my other career, et cetera, et cetera. The only one thing that I'm trying to start teaching agents about today is the concept of start early in your career and figure out how to put together a residual income, something that can help you pay you in the future and also pay benefits and things like that. If you'll start early in it, I think that you can put those things that are disadvantages in this business, you can actually put them together with a little bit of thought. And we're starting to get a much better educated, more talented agent than we had 30 years ago, and people are taking these things into consideration. Because exactly what you just said, Melissa, you think about my dad worked for one company for 35 years, had a great pension plan, they took real good care of him as he was agent. We don't have much of that anymore, do we? So people are starting to come away from those corporate environments and come into fields like this. And you honestly can have some control of your life back. It is work. It is serious work if you want to put it together like that, but it's so well worth it after you've been in the business for a couple of years. The testable parts on this are advantages, disadvantages of being an independent contractor versus an employee. Make sense? Okay. Without even the segue, do you mind if I go directly into chapter 8? Notice I'm skipping all the review stuff at the end of chapter 7. That doesn't mean you should. You have these notes, so you can look at them and spend some time on them. Okay. As you start in chapter 8, what's the name of chapter 8? Isn't it agency contracts? Isn't that the name of chapter 8? Agency contracts, yeah. As we start into chapter 8, I want you to notice this list of agency contracts that we're talking about. I will not even slow down on this list. I'm not even going to slow down. Do you know why? We talked about it in the previous chapter, didn't we? So in other words, in agency, we talked about what contracts exist. In chapter 8, we're basically saying, okay, you're in chapter 8 now. So these are the contracts we're going to be talking about. That I am going to skip. However, this is going to be your first actual note for today, and it's an important one. It's an important one. Are you ready?
Yes.
I have talked about rules of agency agreements. Now it's time for me to bring them all together and put them on a list of 5. Now listen, the agency rule, Rule 104, is actually 2.5 pages long. And it says a lot of the things that you and I have talked about over the past couple of days, especially when we were talking about when things had to be in writing and stuff like that. All of that came from Agency Rule 104. But I want to tell you 5 rules that are more important than all when we talk about the agency rule. And here they come. All agency agreements must be in writing. Now, having said that, if you would like to put at the appropriate time, all agency agreements have to be in writing at the appropriate time. And hopefully, it will resonate with you why I say that. If you work for a seller, when is your agency agreement in writing? Literally before you go to work for it. Okay? You do not work for a seller unless you have a written agency agreement. Are you okay with that? Okay. Obviously, buyer agency could be verbal until no later in the offer to purchase or when you as an agent demand exclusivity. Start to sound familiar? Somebody made a comment about Appendix A earlier today, and that's what the more we go through this book, the more familiar Appendix A starts to sound. Rule number 2, all agency agreements must have a start date and an end date. All agency agreements must have a start date and an end date. All agency agreements must have a start date and an end date. Closely associated with that, agency agreements cannot automatically renew. So it has a start date and an end date, and they cannot automatically renew. They cannot automatically renew. Lauren, if our agency agreement is getting ready to expire, can I ask you if you will relist with me? Is that okay? And then we can enter into a new agreement, right? But can I put language in that agency agreement that says, if we reach the end of the date and it hasn't sold yet, it automatically renews for 6 months? No. That you cannot do. You cannot do. You with me on those? Okay? You could call that 2 and 3 or 2 and 2A if you want to. But the next one, the next rule is, all agency agreements must have standard non-discrimination language. All agency agreements must have standard non-discrimination language. If standard non-discrimination language sounds too highfalutin, you can just simply say fair housing language. All agency agreements must have standard non-discrimination language. And finally, all agency agreements must have your license number. Needless to say, when you get a real estate license, it will have a license number. Mine is 166212. I don't mind telling you because it's public record. Your license is a certificate of public trust. And when you put it on documents, if someone wants to file a complaint against you, it makes you easier to find. Okay? So those are the rules of agency agreements. They must be in writing, they must have a start date and an end date, they cannot be automatically renewable, they must have standard non-discrimination language, and they must have your license number. That is a list that you need to either memorize or make sure that you are completely aware of. Yes, Erica?
Did you say 5 weeks or 4 weeks? I'm sorry.
Well, it depends on how you wrote them down, okay? Yeah, so they must be in writing, must have a start date and an end date, they cannot be automatically renewable, right? There you go. Standard non-discrimination language and your license number. Okay? All right, feel good about that? Good. Let's knock out some easy stuff. Now, let me tell you where we are in the book. Since we're going to work out some stuff on break, I'm going to go to 11 o'clock without stopping. Then we'll figure it all out, okay? All right, let me tell you where we are. We're in agency contracts. We talked about agency in the last chapter. We were preparing you for this, but now it's time for you to go out and get some business. All right? Agent. If you would like to get some business, you're probably going to have to solicit. You're probably going to have to ask for that business, right? So what we're getting ready to talk about are rules affecting solicitation of customers or clients. So let's take a look at some of these things that you need to be aware of. First of all, Article number 16 of the Code of Ethics, of the Realtor Code of Ethics said, you should not solicit. This is the key point. Listen closely. You should not solicit the exclusive clients of other realtors. You should not solicit the what? Exclusive clients of other realtors. Let's turn it into an important point. All right? If I have an exclusive agency agreement with my client, I am the listing agent, I have an exclusive agency agreement, I have a sign out in the yard, okay? You can't just go right around the neighborhood and say, hey, is your agent doing a good job? If not, I would like to list your property. That is against the Code of Ethics, okay? Now, the Code of Ethics technically has nothing to do with this class because that's a realtor issue, not a real estate commission issue, okay? Having said that, can you tell me about an agency agreement that is not exclusive? Tell me an agency agreement that's not exclusive. Oral buyer agency. So now let's talk about how this conversation is going to go. I run into Virginia. She knows that I'm a real estate agent. We get to talking a little bit. And so I would suggest, as an agent, definitely as a realtor, I'm going to ask her this question. Are you already working with an agent? Say yes. Say yes, I've met him at an open house.
Yes, I'm
Okay. Have you signed anything with him? Say no. No. Okay. Can I solicit her? Okay. Now, do you have to? That's a matter of your business practice. A lot of people say, I don't want to interfere. She's already talked to someone. But what the rule states is that I can't solicit them if they're in an exclusive agreement. If they're in a non-exclusive agreement, I can clearly try to solicit her. It's actually more of a Code of Ethics issue than it is a real estate commission issue. Are you okay on that? Don't go riding through neighborhoods, calling signs, and asking if you can list. They already have an agent. National Do Not Call Registry. Let's keep this one simple. You're not going to call people to make a solicitation call that are on the Do Not Call list. That's why they call it that. All right? Do not call people to make a solicitation call. Now listen, agents. If it's someone you're already doing business with and you're calling for a follow-up, about your appointment or whatever, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about calling people up and saying, I'd like to list your home. Do not call people on the do not call list. Be very careful with your cold calling today. Now let me tell you a little bit about how I did real estate years ago. We used to have Tuesday night call night. And on Tuesday night call night, we would get, have you ever seen a reverse directory? A reverse directory has a list of addresses, okay? So people's names are in there not by alphabet, but by their address. So I could find a subdivision that I liked. I could find the cross directory, a phone, and then what we would do on Tuesday nights is we would get pizza and beer. And usually by about my second beer, I could become one smooth talking devil. And so we would pick up those phones and we would make 200 phone calls a night on Tuesday night phone night. Here's basically what they look like. Bling, bling. Pick it up, Melissa.
Hi.
Hey, have you thought about listing or selling your home, or do any of your friends interested in selling your home? Oh, by the way, good evening.
I'm eating dinner right now. Bye.
Okay, thanks. I'll call again tomorrow night. Hang on. 200 times a night, because what would happen is somebody would say, you know what? Weirdly enough, I am thinking about it. It is karma. No, it wasn't. I made 200 calls. Karma really happens if you work really hard. And so that's what we would do on these Tuesday nights. I actually developed a little scheme that I would do. I had buyers, I was working with. When I did my calls, I would always call a neighborhood that I knew was a good neighborhood. And I would, good for like turning over, buying and selling property. And I would say, I have buyers that are interested in your neighborhood. Have you thought about buying or selling your home? Because then people didn't automatically hang up on me. They would say, well, I haven't thought about it, but tell me, can I get a lot of money for it? And then it started a conversation. So my close rate was actually much higher than that because I had a good story going in. Can you imagine doing that now?
I had a call like that a couple of weeks ago, though. It was the first time, I'm like, this is different.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Are you on the do not call list?
No.
Okay. That's your fault. Today, to do that, you would literally have to go through that list of people and check them against the do not call list before you made every total call, right? So, having said that, here's the thing that you might be tested on. There are actually some exemptions to the do not call registry, and that's what you need to know. First of all, does everybody understand that the do not call registry has to do with residential phones? It's not business numbers, it's residential phones, okay? So here are the exemptions. First of all, there's two of them that are actually very simple. You can call your friends and family who are on the do not call list. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not, but you can call your friends and family unless they ask you to what? Stop calling. You know, I had the weird thing happen. I called my dad, and every time I would call my dad, right before I hung up, I would always say, love you, Dad. By the way, do you know anyone interested in buying or selling real estate? And eventually he asked me to stop calling. He said he was getting his referrals to his other son. He liked that anyway. It's not a true story, not a true story. Obviously, there's one of the other exemptions you don't even need to write down is if someone gives you permission, so in other words, prior express permission to call them, obviously you can call someone who is given you express permission to call them, right? That's not difficult to understand. So here comes the ones that are difficult to understand that you may be tested on. You can call someone for up to 3 months. You can call someone on the do not call list for up to 3 months after having provided them information regarding your services. You can call them for up to how many months? 3 months after having provided them information regarding your services. When you get there, stop. You can call someone for up to 3 months after having provided them information regarding your services. Okay, so here's the deal. You ever been to a real estate agent's website? Let me tell you what a good website is for producing leads. It's for lead generation. Okay, so I might put something on there that sounds kind of cool. Call me for my first-time homebuyer package, or call me for my investor package. Why are the realtors putting that on there? They want you to do what? Contact them, provide them information, including your phone number, because now you just gave them permission to call you. So when I say information regarding my services, you, the consumer, solicited something from me. What you did is you just gave me the ability to call you, even if you're on the do not call list, for up to 3 months. Now notice that's if I provide information regarding my services. I send you a pamphlet or something like that. Okay? Now, I can call you for up to 3 months unless you do what? Ask me to stop. If you ask me to stop, I have to stop. Okay? All right, the next bullet point. You can call someone for up to 8. And remember, when I say call someone on the do not call list for up to 18 months. That's a long time. That's right. You can call them for up to 18 months after having actually provided them a service. And if you want to make it simple on yourself, I mean, think about the services we provide, buyer agency, seller agency, etc. You can call someone for up to how many months?
18.
Up to 18 months after have provided them an actual service, unless they do what? Tell you to stop. Okay? If I were going to study anything, it would be those 2 rules right there. Okay? Just make sure that you have the dates. Keep in mind, we can play around with numbers on it. And then one last thing for in the field. One last thing for in the field. For sale by owner. For sale by owner, put a sign in the yard. For sale by owner, call 919-555-1212. You, as an agent, can you call them if they're on the do not call list, just because they put their number on the sign? No, not to make a solicitation call. Would it be different if you had a buyer in your car and the buyer said, hey, that house looks good, can we go see it? Can I call on behalf of my buyer?
Yeah,
Because that's not a what?
that's not solicitation.
That's not a solicitation call, okay? Be a little bit careful on that one in the field. For sale by owner, if you want to call and do a listing appointment, check and find out if they're on the do not call list. If you have a buyer in the car and your buyer wants to see it, call. It's not a solicitation call. By the way, there is not a do not knock on door law. So if you see it for sale by owner, and I used to work for sale by owners, so knocking on their door and dropping off some information, that is still okay. If they say protected by Smith & Wesson, you might want to, skip that one and go to the next one. But having said that, do not call if they're on the do not call list, even though they put their number up there. Yeah.
Well, what about no solicitation signs on the doors? Like, isn't that a do not knock on my door?
Well, if they have one specifically on their door, I would typically leave them alone. If they have one in the neighborhood, those really, they're really not any good, the ones for the neighborhood, because I'm sure they let the Girl Scouts solicit. If they let the Girl Scouts solicit, they have to let everybody. But if they have it on their specific door, I would follow that. I would. Okay. Do not call. You feel all right about that? Residential phones, 3 months, 18 months for sale by owner. You okay? All right, let's move on to the Junk Fax Prevention Act. Well, here's my Junk Fax Prevention Act. Don't use a dang fax machine. It's the year 2017 or 18 or whatever it is, okay? We have moved on, and so should you, okay? Interestingly enough, the Junk Fax Act applies not only to residential, but also to business lines, okay? So don't send unsolicited fax to either a business or a residential phone. And if I were to remember anything about this act at all, it would be simply this: have a conspicuous opt-out option, okay? So in other words, if I send an unsolicited fax, and on the front it says, if you would like out of this, call this number and we'll take you off the list, that's what I would do, have a conspicuous opt-out option. That's about all you need to remember about the junk fax. Not really a big deal in residential real estate any longer. It was at one point when I was on site, and faxes were still in vogue, this is 20 years ago. We would send out bulk faxes to people. If we had a special, we'd send them out to all the real estate offices. They were pre-programmed into the fax machine and just boom, we'd send out 200 of them in a short period of time. Canned Spam Act. Here's what you want to know about canned spam. Canned spam has to do with unsolicited emails. Unsolicited emails. Now, the thing I want you to watch out for on the exam is actually almost exactly the same thing I said about the Junk Fax Act. If you are going to send out bulk emails, you want to have an opt-out option, right? Do not put misleading headers in your email to get people to open them up. Opt-out option, do not put misleading headers. Does that make sense? You know what I'm talking about? Well, like in my email, when I send it out to you, now it's in your box, don't say something like, click here to win $100,000, okay? Or to say, your mom and dad just sent you a note, click here, okay? This is illegal. It has to be about, I'm getting ready to solicit you for real estate. That's what it's going to say. You don't have to be quite that obvious, but that's the idea. And by the way,